Welcome to module number 4. This segment will require the use of a computer or laptop. We will be reviewing how to access the tutoring database and also how to complete your timesheet electronically. This is a very important part of your tutoring responsibilities. Not only will we review how to complete and submit your timesheet for payroll purposes, but we will review how to document your tutoring sessions. As previously mentioned, timely and accurate documentation of your tutoring sessions is very important. So let's go ahead and get started. The bottom half of your staff reminders covers all appointment to-dos. There are two main requirements here: your tutoring data forms and timesheets. These items must be completed as part of your tutoring responsibilities. Let's start with the tutoring data forms. Paper copies of tutoring data forms are required for all tutors conducting in-person tutoring. Electronic forms are required for remote tutoring sessions. For in-person tutoring, once the hard copy of the form is completed and the data is entered online, the forms are to be given to the tutoring contact for your specific campus. For main campus tutors, they get placed in the tutor workroom. Let's take a look at the tutoring data form. The tutoring data form has two sides. The first side is for all regular tutoring appointments, while the back is used only for attendance reporting issues. The electronic version of this form, which again must be completed by all tutors whether in person or remote, looks almost identical to the paper version but in an electronic format. Most of the information on this form is self-explanatory. We can fly through this relatively quickly, so let's go ahead and get started. You will see at the top of the form is a lot of just basic information about the student in the course. So you have the date of the tutoring session, your name as the tutor's name, the student's 7-digit ID number, the appointment time, the course and instructor, and then where and how the session took place. So if you were on a campus, you indicate that. If you were remote, you indicate that. Next, you have some specifics. You need to indicate whether it was a regularly scheduled appointment or it was an as-needed student. Walk-in lab we really aren't doing right now, so you really won't need to worry about that. Indicate the number of students in your session. Typically it's going to be a one-on-one session, so that would be one student. However, there are instances where you may have more than one student in the session, so just please make sure you indicate the number of students that were in that session. And then mark the time that you actually tutored the student. Typically, students, as we know, are eligible for 1 hour each week for each course. So if it's a 1 hour session and they were there for the full hour, make sure you select 1 hour. We also talked that there may be exceptions to that rule. So if they were there longer than that as an approved tutoring time, please make sure you go ahead and indicate that accordingly. Next, you will have the student sign the form and date it, and you will sign and date it as well. This basically acts as a confirmation that the tutoring session actually took place. The bottom part of the front of the page is talking about scheduling the next appointment. There are two primary options. The students can schedule the appointment now, which is typically what will take place at the end of the tutoring session. Perfect time to sit down and discuss the next appointment time. It should ideally be the same day, same time. And if the student agrees to that, they should sign and date it, and that confirms that they will be at the next tutoring session. We do understand, though, that there are instances when a student may not be able to commit to the next week's appointment for whatever reason. We understand that, that's fine as well, but we do need to make sure they understand they have a responsibility to reach back to their tutor as soon as possible, which would be within a week, to set up the next appointment day. Or if that doesn't occur and we do not hear from the student or you do not hear from the student, we may at some point have to have a conversation about removing them from your schedule so that we can give that spot to somebody else. That basically wraps up the information on the front part of the tutoring data form. And again, once this information is completed, it does get entered into the tutoring database online, which we will talk about in a minute. This is the back part of the tutoring data form. And as we talked when we reviewed the student contract, we do document attendance situations. And the back form of the contract will be used for this purpose. This information captures whether or not the student is a no-show or a cancellation. There's just a few quick, simple yes or no questions, and then this information also gets entered online into the database. Now that we cover the information that's contained on the tutoring data forms, we're going to learn how to access this information online in the tutoring database. You should have received, as part of your attachments, the instructions for email and data forms. We are going to be walking through this information step by step in a video so that I can demonstrate the steps that you will do.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, it's Heather Jewett again, and I'm here for this segment to teach you how to access and enter your tutoring information from your sessions. This information is very important because we run multiple reports throughout the course of the semester. This information is shared not only with our dean, but president's cabinet and often board members as well. So it's very important that this data be entered accurately and as timely as possible. If you have any questions while you're working through this information, please be sure to ask one of your tutoring contacts. Now you can enter this information either at home or on any campus. If you are going to enter the information on a campus using one of our computers, you will first need to log into the computer. To do that, you would enter your first name dot last name, and it's not case sensitive, as your username, and your password would be first initial of your first name capitalized, first initial of your last name capitalized, and then the last 4 digits of your social security number. So for example, for me, when I initially logged in, it would have been heather.jewert, and my password would have been capital H, capital J, and then the last 4 digits of my social. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you and walk you through step by step on how to access this information. Okay. So you should now be looking at my screen, and I'm going to open one of our internet browsers. And this one directly takes me to the BC3 main page, but if you need to put that in on your own, it would be www.bc3.edu. From here, you're going to go to Services and Resources at the top in blue and click. You're going to scroll down till you find tutoring on the left-hand side and choose that. This will then take you to the tutoring main page. You'll probably have to scroll down a little bit so you can access the Active Tutors button, which will then open a link that says Active Tutor Resources. The first item is what we're going to use most often, which is the tutoring data entry login, and then choose the link under that. This now will guide you into our BC3 portal. You will log into this portal with the same login that we just talked about. I would highly encourage you to change your password at some point. It's easiest to do on main campus because you can do Control-Alt-Delete on the computer and it will prompt you to change your password, or you can see on here as well, you can choose the Change Password button and it will guide you through that. That just makes your information more secure. So I have my information already typed in, so I'm going to log in, and your login is exactly the same as we talked about the first time, first name dot last name, and then whatever password you've created. Now your screen may look slightly different than mine just because I have access to a little bit more information for report purposes and things like that. So you'll see add form, review forms, and then you should see links. Links is where you will access your electronic timesheets. Review forms is where you will access information that you've entered previously, whether it be tutoring data forms and things like that. If you want to look something up or make a change, everything you enter will always be captured under the review forms. Now, you won't have anything to specifically look up right now because you haven't entered any forms yet, but please know that you can always access your information under the review forms. So let's assume you just completed a tutoring session. So you're going to go to add form. Now your drop-down box will look just slightly different than mine, as I will have more options on mine. The main items you're going to look at are your tutoring log and then the no-show or the cancellation. The only time you use the no-show and the cancellation are if you have one of those attendance issues. I'm not going to go specifically into those. Feel free to take a look at them on your own. But when you click on them, they're pretty self-explanatory in entering student information and then just clicking a couple yes or no boxes. What I do want to point out is that behind the scenes, when those items are recorded, there is an automatic email that's generated and sent out to the student about those attendance situations. It does not come from our tutors, it comes from the tutoring department itself. And it just kind of reminds them that, hey, we know that you had an attendance situation and the importance of following up with their tutor and, you know, the attendance policy. So let's assume you just completed your tutoring session and we're going to go to a tutoring log. For those of you tutoring face-to-face, we have paper copies of this that are entered, and it looks as identical as you can in an electronic version here. A lot of this information does pre-populate eventually for you, so it's pretty quick to get through this step. It starts with the fall term, which is already populated. Location, pick the location of your tutoring session. If it was remote, make sure you click on online. The date, you will select the date of the tutoring appointment, not the date that you're entering the form, but the day of the tutoring appointment. And then pick the appropriate time for the appointment. There are some pre-populated times that are listed, but if you don't see yours listed, make sure you click on other and then enter the time of your appointment. Your name should automatically be populated as the tutor. And this is where you would type in the student ID number. So you will want to make sure you have that information handy. And I have a sample student ID number that we're going to try to pull up here and see how it works. There we go. Took me a second, but I got it. So they have created for us a test person so I can demonstrate how this process works securely. So when you click put in their ID number and click look up, you will see their email. So you'll have access to their email if you need to email them. You will also see underneath their courses for that semester. So here it looks like this individual student is enrolled in one course for the fall semester, which is the history of art. So we're going to assume that's the course that you tutor them in. So you would select the appropriate course and then follow up with the questions below. No need to click on walk-in because we're not doing walk-in tutoring at this time. Select the size of the tutoring session. Typically, it's going to be one-on-one sessions, so just you and one student. If, however, you're tutoring groups, just make sure you select the appropriate size of your group tutoring. So we're going to go with one-on-one. Then select the length of the session. As we talked before, tutoring appointments are 1 hour in length, unless there is an exception for that individual student or they've been approved for additional time. So we're just going to assume it was a regular 1 hour appointment. Down below, you have 3 options for scheduling the next appointment. If you wrapped up your tutoring session by setting up the next tutoring appointment, which is what typically should happen, you would click on Schedule Now and then put in the appropriate information for the next appointment session. What this does, it generates an email to the student with that next appointment day and time so they can add it to their calendar if they want. If for some reason the student was unable to schedule their appointment with you when you met at the end of the session, you can put student will schedule later. And remember that students are required to follow up within a week to get a next appointment scheduled with you. If they do not do that, make sure you let us know or follow up with your student. Or the only time we're going to really select do not schedule is if it's at the end of the semester and there are no further meetings, or if the student is removed from your schedule or decides to cancel their tutoring for the semester. So once that's all completed, I'm not going to fill this part in because we talked about how to do that. Notes section, you can use it as you like. It's not a requirement, but many tutors like to do a quick documentation of what occurred in the tutoring session. Feel free to do so. You can refer back to that at any time. And then we won't click save because we don't need to save this particular student, but once you have your student information entered, you're going to click on save. That'll pull it right over into the review form so you can access it again if you need it. So this wraps up how to access the data form and the data entry. Again, we have the review forms at the top. Links will take you to where you can access your BC3 timesheet. Now you might not see some of this as well, but you can also access your BC3 email here too. So to access your timesheet, you click on Timesheets, and then you will see the information pop up. Now what you see on the screen here is going to look a little bit different than what you see because I do not complete a timesheet, but this is a sample of what it would look like, and it would give you space in each of the days to enter your information. And there is a handout included in your attachments that teaches you how to do that step by step. So this is going to wrap up the section on how to access the tutoring database and how to enter your information on your tutoring sessions. The second thing as a tutor that you will be required to do after each appointment is document your tutoring hours. Included in your attachments, you should have received a work copy timesheet. This is not a required form. This is a tool that many of our tutors like to use and find very helpful. It is a method to keep track of your tutoring hours and information for the month, and then you can just transfer the data into your electronic timesheet for submittal. If you have another method you prefer to use, that is perfectly fine as well. You can also, of course, just directly enter your timesheet data on a daily basis. Again, entirely up to you. Let's take a minute to look at the work copy timesheet so you are familiar with how to record your hours electronically. As you see, there are two sections or grids that can be completed. One is the content grid and one is the prep and developmental grid. The only time you record hours in the prep developmental grid is if you're tutoring a student on a prep or developmental course. The course itself must have the words prep and developmental in the title for your hours to be recorded in this section. For example, prep reading, prep English, or prep algebra. If the course does not have the words prep or developmental in it, they will be recorded in the content grid at the top. The reason this is so important is that the hours come out of two separate budgets. Again, feel free to use this tool as you like, but know that it is not required. Also included in your attachments should be instructions on how to complete your electronic timesheet. Please take a few minutes and be sure you can access your information and familiarize yourself with the timesheet. When it comes time to complete and submit your first month's timesheet, feel free to contact us with any questions. Finally, you should have received instructions on how to access your email. Just a reminder as you set up your email that your login information is the same. First name dot last name and then your password. If you haven't changed your password yet, it would be capital first letter of your first name, capital first letter of your last name, and then last 4 digits of your social. We ask, in order for you to complete your tutor training process, that you send an email confirming that your email is set up and ready to use. Once we receive your email, we will then see if you have any questions and get you officially added to the active tutoring list. This completes your tutor training. Please be sure if you have any questions, you contact one of your tutoring coordinators listed below. We are happy to help guide you through the process as you get started and familiarize yourself with the tutoring program. Welcome to the team.